Growing up in a sports-centric household, very athletically talented, and lots of competition within the family, her brother plays pro golf right now. Logan Finnell knew at a very young age that she had to pick a sport and she had to be good at it, and she decided on tennis. Good on her. All the way through college tennis, she played and beyond, and is funneling that passion now at Tennis Channel, where she is programming and acquisitions manager. She shares her story with me today on the Honest Something podcast. I'm Bryan Fenley, calling tennis for the USTA Pro Circuit, lots of challengers, and have called tennis for Tennis Channel. And this is a place where we go beyond the boundaries of work to share the story of Logan, like the love and support she feels from her parents, her fearlessness that she carries with her to this day, that and so much more, front and center, that which you don't know about her will be made known in this conversation. Before we get started, don't forget to subscribe. Here's my chat with Logan. Logan, I have had a lot of your friends, a lot of your colleagues on, many who you work with on a regular basis at TC. So I am so grateful to have you on here to share your story as well. Thanks for being a part of this.
Yeah, thanks, Brian. I really appreciate you asking me to be on. You've had some conversations with a lot of familiar faces I know in tennis and those that I've admired and took advice from. And so I really commend you for taking this approach of trying to understand people on a human level and not just look through that professional lens because, there's so much to people and how they got their starts. So I want you to keep up the good work. What you're doing here is great.
I really appreciate that. And people are now going to realize the great work that you are doing. You said advice in that answer. You're going to be giving advice to people, I feel like, through the storytelling that we have in this conversation. And as we get this thing underway, obviously, and surely tennis has been a passport for you to see the world. You just came back from Roland Garros, the French
Mhm.
Open. With all the traveling you have done in your life, what was it like riding on a hot air balloon?
Oh my God, you really you really did your research. Yeah, that was a first time thing and one of the most exhilarating experiences of my life. I gotta say, I think it was like peak COVID time, and my parents had just moved to San Diego, which really happy about that move because I get to visit them so often being here in LA. And yeah, we just did this as we can kind of combine it as a Thanksgiving trip and my dad's birthday. And we all don't have a fear of heights, so that wasn't an issue. But it was cool. We did it. We went out. I think it was a sunset time. You either go in like sunrise or sunset, and just to look at the world and everything that you can see from that view, it's just mind blowing. I mean, you just kind of forget all the worries you have in the world and just take a second and look at what's just right in front of you. Like, so blessed. It was fun.
What did you see when you were up there?
It's funny. We actually my parents' house that's been through quite a remodel process, going 3 years strong. Um, we had wherever we were getting on board from. We were kind of going around the neighborhoods of like Del Mar, Rancho Santa Fe, where my parents live, and we went right over my parents' house. So we saw that. I was like, wow, can this hot air balloon just drop us off right in front of our house? But no, it's just seeing um just the houses, the beautiful golf courses. It's just things you don't see on foot. And it was cool. I would highly recommend anyone to do it.
We were going to do it once, and then the wind was so bad that they advised us
Oh
not to.
no.
But I do have a fear of heights, and so I applaud
Um,
you for not having that. But you brought up a
that would be
really,
tough.
yeah, no doubt. And you brought up a really interesting point, Logan, the idea of stepping outside of yourself and looking at the world from a different angle. Here you are in a hot air balloon, and we live our lives and we do what we need to do on earth, and but then we go outside of that and you're able to see things in a different light and a different picture.
Mhm.
When you're able to do that, when do you find, outside of when you're on a hot air balloon, but when do you find it easiest for you to sort of separate yourself from the minutia of work in life, and when you are able to pull back a little bit and have that grander perspective?
Ooh, I love that question. Just because I feel like I really learned the most about myself during COVID, just of having that space away from people, getting out. You really have is to go outside and go on walks, and that's exactly what I did. It was funky because I I still had my workload. I was blessed to still have my job. Tennis still went on. We didn't have the regular tour level events going on, but we'd have some exhibition matches we'd put on. We'd have some old programming, some old matches that we would curate and stuff like that. So I was staying pretty busy, um, which helped me stay sane in a way because I wasn't going crazy and, having to like apply for new jobs, which whatever was out there at the time. So I had that still going for me. But you're separated from your friends, and so you're taking a lot of time for yourself. So what I really looked at as an outlet for me was just getting outside, getting walks in. And I wouldn't even go out for like a 10-minute walk. I would make it a thing to go out for an
Wow.
hour every single day. And I would, whether it was listening to music, most of the time I was listening to podcasts, just learning everything possible that I wanted to know about the world, mainly tennis. I really wanted to kind of still know about what's going on in the tennis world, where the tennis world is headed in the future and stuff like that. And I do that to this day. But walks were a way to kind of help me stay balanced with my life. And maybe I'd go out and go on walks with my family or my friends. But getting that movement to go outside, I know everybody talks about it ad nauseum, but it really is so crucial, I think, to just keep some sort of sanity and balance in your life.
You mentioned how podcasting and your love of learning and that curiosity,
Yeah.
which is such a common denominator for where you are and how you've gotten to where you are. What about the sport of tennis? And you said something about, what the future looks like, and obviously that's something that perks your interest. But what about tennis, the sport, did you learn most when you were away from it? Like in those moments when you were walking and you were listening to the podcast, when you were away from it, as not being able to be as hands-on. I'm sure you still had your job, and fortunately, and you were able to put together, as you said, these exhibition events. But the separation on site with your friends and your colleagues, and you being a great tennis player yourself, what did that teach to you about the game that maybe you didn't know beforehand?
Yeah, well, I definitely empathize and sympathize with just the players in general of, this is their livelihood, this is how they make money, and they're just at this standstill at the moment where there's no real, at the time there was no real end in sight, or they didn't know, when they'd go out there and compete again for prize money. And so just to be in that sort of limbo period where, certain players have different training blocks of how hard they train and given, as they gear up for tournaments. So it's hard for them to just, they're not really knowing what to do. So I empathize. That was just one thing I noticed. But yeah, I would just say just it allowed me to be grateful to have a job that, you know, tennis channel is a 24/7 network, so something has to go in the air. So, um, I think those were some things that I, you know, took hold to. But yeah, trying to think, trying to think of some other questions or some other
Yeah.
notes about that. Um,
You did pretty good as far as the empathy. I think that is humongous. And
yeah,
that being a big part of things. The competitor that was you were empathizing over when watching these players and not being able to compete as much as they normally would when the circuit would be full scale and have its full schedule. But then when things started to get back into motion here, it made me think about, you come from a very competitive tennis background. When you were playing at LMU,
Mhm.
where were you most competitive on the court? What about you brought out the biggest source of competition within you?
Yeah, I was always taught in my junior tennis from coaches that you're always going to practice the way that you compete. So I was always someone that showed up early, that um, put 110% into all of my practices, hoping that it would translate well into matches. And sometimes I would have, the mental struggles. I think every player does, but I think those are some words of wisdom that have really stuck with me, because when I would go on the court, and once you get to the college level, you have so many different forms of discipline. It's not only you're playing matches and you're playing an individual sport, but you're also competing for your team. You're competing for your school, and we also had our physical, our training and our training sessions in the gym and other cross training that we would do if it's in and out of season. So there were so many ways that you had to show up. And I have always been taught by my parents, who are just the best people ever, to lead by example too. So I always kind of wanted to show how I am, and so that it might inspire others, and that it could be a leader as well. I would say that.
What are the best parts of your parents?
They're both very different. I love them both. They actually both met. They were from the broadcast world. So it's a full
Oh,
circle moment that I actually work in broadcast as well, but they actually worked in Winston-Salem. My dad was a sports anchor and my mom was a news anchor. And my dad came from this big sports background, loved sports, and definitely bestowed that on my brother and I, who've always competed in all sports. But he was just someone that always pushed getting outside and trying new things. And definitely, I mean, the sports came from my dad. But my mom, I would say, she has been so fiercely independent from a young age. She lived in New York City and really fought for herself, and was involved in theater. Then it turned into being a news anchor. But she also just always had this zest for life and curiosity for trying new things out. And I think I've kind of picked up on that as well, because she's done, a bunch of different odd jobs purely because she was curious. People would tell her that she couldn't do it, and she would always prove them wrong. And she started a new career that's been, she likes to say it took her like 60 years to find her dream and her passion. But it really taught me that, at any age you can really, peak and find your stride. And so she's one of the most inspiring people I know.
sounds very inspiring to not just you, but in listening to that story for me as well. And you said Winston-Salem. My first
Yep.
television job was in Winston-Salem
No way.
as a sports producer at WXII.
Oh my gosh.
Is that the
That
same?
might I might have to get back to you on that, but it
Yeah,
sounds familiar.
it it was the NBC affiliate at the time. And
Okay.
so I went to college out there in North Carolina, and then
Oh,
I
nice.
do 3 days a week. So you'll have to get back to me as
I
far as whether it's
will.
at
How
WXII,
funny.
because your dad and me could have worked at the same place, obviously at different stages, but
Yeah.
that would be a wonderful coincidence, a
Oh,
beautiful
how
coincidence
funny.
if that was the
I will look
case.
into that. I'll let you know.
Yeah, yeah. Please let me know about that. The other thing was, I thought it was beautiful how you were describing the way your mom and how she had to fight her way and make things happen from New York City and beyond, and where she is today. And she's come to find this nice realization and happiness now. Where do you find yourself fighting hardest?
Fighting hardest. I would say I fight against myself, and not for any pressure that I feel from other people or my boss. I'm very self-motivated. I think I'm hardest on myself, just because I always think I can be better, but I think that's also beautiful as well because I don't want to always feel content and feel like I can't get any better than how I'm doing, whether any place that I'm in life, professional and my personal life, I always want to be better. So yeah, for a second I may give myself a hard time, but knowing like this is to push you and that I'm growing from it.
The best of times when you were the captain in college at LMU, if I were to meet you then, how would I know then that you would captain a career in what you're doing now in sports media?
um well, I was probably not like the most typical college person and knowing exactly what I wanted to do right out of college. Everyone's figuring it out, navigating their way, just trying to get by. But I think, and it actually happened for me right after high school. I was involved in a USTA Pro Challenger event up in Aptos, California, so Northern Cal. And I knew I loved the sport and I was passionate about it, followed it closely. I knew who was who and who's doing well, who's on the rise and all of that. And so I had this opportunity to work there doing media press. I would interview players, I'd write press releases. And it was like this kind of aha moment at that time, like, oh my gosh, like I know I'm using tennis as a vehicle in school, and I'm so grateful. But I know that there is going to be a life outside of college. I know my talent will only take me so far, like competing, but I love this sport and I definitely want to work in it, in whatever capacity that might be, following college. So once I was, kind of had that moment and knew like what would be in front of me, I really was present in school and present with my teammates, present in my classroom, of just taking it all in, but knowing I had this like long-term goal for myself. So each and every day and year and school year, I would make those actionable steps to get there. But I think having that clear vision in college um is rare, like I said, but just so awesome for me because I know a lot of people don't have that, and they figure it out and still figure it out, and everyone's learning what their passions are. So yeah.
Outside of tennis, outside of family, what are those passions for you?
Well, my one of my biggest values is family time. Um I've always had a really tight knit family unit. My brother, who's 16 months younger than me, he's a pro golfer now. Us four, we were always took pride in taking family trips and
Sure.
doing activities together, maybe some competitive family doubles or competitive time on the golf course. So we've always really been grounded in that family unit. So that's been hugely important to me. And kind of what we touched on earlier of just having that balance. I like my friend time. I like going on trips. I do a lot of things myself too, just to kind of have a break from maybe a lot going on and just take a second for yourself. And so in any activity I can try that's new, I'm all for it. I still am trying to get into pickleball. I know that it's sweeping the nation right now, but
Yeah.
yeah, just things that can challenge me in different ways. But I'm a big outdoors girl. Try all the sports, do it with your friends, make memories, go on the trips, no regrets, that kind of life.
No regrets going on trips. Let's say one to the golf course. That's an activity that's outdoors.
Mhm.
You playing with your brother. What am I going to learn about you in watching how you and your brother, let's say you two are playing 9 holes or 18 holes for fun, but that back and forth and that relationship between you two, what am I going to glean from those moments when you two are on the golf course?
Well, you're gonna see how extremely patient my brother is with me learning because I used to play way back when, like when I was a junior, kind of still figuring out if tennis was the direction I wanted to go. And he's actually a really good tennis player too. Um, but I had some basic fundamentals down. And so I'm glad that when I repicked it up, I guess, during COVID, I knew some basics, so it wouldn't be really starting from scratch. But my brother would, give me tips and tricks there, and I just want to prove that I can do
Yeah.
it. And I don't want him to, I don't want to take away from his training and all of that. And but he's just always been that way. My mom is a very patient person, and he's really gotten that. I think if the roles were reversed, I'm a little impatient. So if I were teaching him, I would get so frustrated. But so no, it's good. He's been very supportive. He's seen a lot of growth in my game, and my goal is just to be able to socially play. And I'm not trying to go on the LPGA tour any day now, but just be around that I can hold my own and not always hit it in the trees.
That's going to happen. It's only a
Yeah.
matter of time. You will see all those things come to fruition. And it was so interesting hearing how your brother and you, while so similar, also have so many differences internally. But as you mentioned, if we were to flip the script here and you were on the tennis court now with your brother, what are the tips and the tricks that he doesn't have that you're going to make sure that and that you show in your own game that you're going to tell him right away?
Well, he he's a lucky guy. He has just that so much natural ability. He can go weeks, months not playing, and then he'll pick up a racket again and finagle his way and
Wow.
win. He almost has a better killer instinct, I think, than I do. Because sometimes I go out and play now, and the last thing I want to do is play a set or a match. I'll just play and recreationally, have fun, maybe do some family doubles, and it'll get competitive. But he has more of that game style where he'll spin his way to victory. He'll do the drop shots. He'll do a curious underhand serve. Like he'll do what he can to win. And I gotta admire it. But then I go more old school, and I like to do all the shots that I've been taught my whole life, and I don't get as crafty as him, but it works for him.
Who wins the family doubles matches?
Ooh, we do a lot of uh round robin. So we always mix up our partners. Sometimes it's pretty even, I gotta say. If like my brother's playing with my mom or I'm playing with my dad, like it keeps it interesting. It's not always one-sided, you know? So
Who's
it's
doing
pretty
the most talking when you guys are having those doubles matches as a say, hey, we got this and you don't, or we're beating you and or all
good.
that kind
Oh
of
yeah.
fun back and
I'll
forth.
definitely point that to my dad. Yeah, he'll make up every excuse in the book of why he'll miss a shot. I have my knees, or I haven't played in 3 months. What do you expect? So we get a lot of that chatter, but it's all good fun.
This life of yours has been a lot of fun. What about you as a child? And it's like, as we kind of wrap up this conversation, how much of your childhood was invested in tennis? And obviously it was because you spent so much time playing in competition and in college. But when you were young, how far did you think you would take the game of tennis playing it and where you were aiming for?
Yeah. So where we grew up, I grew up in Carmel, California, up in Northern California, and we lived very close to like a golf and tennis resort. So essentially, it was in our backyard. We couldn't avoid it. And my mom loves the game. She would go out and play as much as possible, whether she was getting a lesson, she was playing in her league. And so naturally, she got my brother and I involved young. Um, and I loved it, but I also, my dad's also in my ear saying, well, you need to try soccer and baseball and or softball and soccer and all of that. And I loved it, the whole team atmosphere in that too. And I knew tennis was different. So just when I was young, I tried everything. I think in high school is when I started to see that I maybe had a little bit more ability to make it in college if I played tennis and focused on that. And I went to a high school where they focused or their their best programs were tennis and golf, and it just fit for my brother and I. So it allowed us to focus. I did play basketball and tennis in high school, but I thought, wow, if I really, want to take this to the next level, maybe I should lock in a little bit more in tennis. So it was really high school. But I was so grateful to play all the other sports. I really think it just set me up for success in everything I did.
Last question. How did it set you up for success in what you're doing right now at TC?
Yeah. Well, I would say definitely just being a part of a team is so great. I mean, that translates so well when you're working in teams in the professional world of knowing how to be a team player and learning and knowing it's okay to ask for help and advice and to um, just love on what you're doing and know that you're going for like a common goal as well. It's not you're just doing it for yourself, but you're doing it for your company, as I speak to about Tennis Channel, and hoping that we succeed and thrive. And so, yeah.
Fearlessness, a big part of who you are and why it's allowed you to have so much success at TC from a work standpoint, fearlessness on the tennis court from all your days playing, even now, fearlessness going on that hot air balloon ride and not being afraid of heights. I have no idea how you do that, but if that isn't just that moment symbolic as to the go-getter you are, then I don't know what else to say. But that to me speaks volumes. Logan Finnell, I'm Bryan Fenley. Logan, thank you so much for doing this.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I had a blast.